Hey everyone, we've got Connor and Steven.
Happy stream night, everybody.
Connor and Steven. Kai, how you doing?
So far so good. I appreciate you hanging in with the audio issues on my side. You'd think by now, working from home for 2 years, I'd figure out how to do audio for a video conference, but apparently it still eludes me. So
That's the world we live in now. So let's see. We've got Sligh versus Rector Oath. So this would be a cool matchup.
yeah, it's anyone who's caught any of the streams, is familiar with Connor's deck. It is definitely an interesting one. So it's not quite as like, oh, it's just clearly this matchup versus this, this deck versus this deck. I know obviously we had a chance to look at the list. Was there anything that kind of like stood out to you in either of them? I think the Sligh list is relatively straightforward, but I wasn't sure if like anything in Connor's really kind of like stood out to you, like, okay, this is like gonna maybe make or break things like pre-board or post-board, I guess even.
Yeah, I think his anticipation here with the cards like Cabal Therapy and really stalling out the game are really what's going to be important here to kind of give Connor enough time to do his thing. So see right there, you get a good name with the lightning bolt. And we're seeing this in ball lightning, looks like a jackal pup, and really kind of a fast start, and what you want here if you're Steven.
Yeah, 100%. I was gonna say as soon as Connor sees that mountain and then that Mog hit, he's like, all right, therapy's got to hit something here fast.
Yeah, that ball lightning is pretty nasty, and then you've got the curse scroll there, hoping to kind of finish him off.
Yeah, this is looking like a pretty mean start from Sligh, especially because I think most of the stuff that Connor has to like get his kind of engine going and get set up, like it's going to take him a little bit. I mean, obviously Oath and Rector. Yeah, thankfully he's got the therapy in the yard already for that Rector, but there's a couple cards I know that Connor has, one or two in the main that could be useful, but like those are going to take a couple turns to get there.
Yeah, and here we go. Here's that kind of time that Connor needs. I mean, he basically bought himself 2 turns there by the ball lightning.
Yeah, I was going to say being able to get that ball lightning out of their head to feel really good, because otherwise that, I mean, yes, our red player needed to draw land off the top, but I mean that was going to be some big ouch pretty quickly. So yeah, I'll be interested to see if Connor can, to your point, kind of stave things off long enough to kind of get himself in a good position and stabilize. But it's going to be, could be tricky, could prove tricky.
Yeah, let's take a look at this Rector Oath list here. So he's got a couple Burning Wish, 3 Rector, 2 Corrosion Reclamation, 4 Duress, 4 Cabal Therapy, 4 Sterling Grove, 4 Oath of Druids, 2 Seal of Cleansing, 1 Ray of Revelation, 1 Peace of Mind, 1 Replenish, 2 Form of the Dragon, 3 Necropotence, Forbidden Crypt, 2 Funeral Pile, 4 Lotus Petal. So other than the hand disruption, I mean, not a lot that's that Steven's really going to care about. I mean, his plan is straightforward. Burn him out as fast as he can. So yeah, that looks like I mean, maybe there's some stuff here we can do. So we've got the Oath on the table for the Rector.
Yeah, I was gonna say just in time that Mog gets sacked. I was gonna say that's the one tough part is like it's not a jackal pup sitting out there on the battlefield that you're forcing the Sligh player to like use a burn spell to get rid of and take damage. Obviously, if it's the pup, it's like, hey, like I can get you for 1 and then just throw this at you, and now you have no Oath trigger. That peace of mind, like I did see that in Connor's list, and I'm like, I mean, if he has time to get that online and kind of get that set up, that obviously gives him some more breathing room. Not really an ability per se, but okay, we've got the Rector.
Okay, so we're close to doing it. So
Yeah.
we're gonna sack here. Um, name a relevant card. Is that one in hand? No, that's the
Yeah.
dice on the top.
Yeah,
Oh, there's there. Okay, there's the corner. Yeah, the black sleeves were throwing me off there.
Yeah, as I say, black sleeves. It's on webcam too. I think I'm getting a little bit of reflection. I'm thinking that's Peace of Mind there. But I was going to say this is definitely not the matchup where you get to just throw a form of the dragon into play and just say good luck opponent, because Sligh is more than happy, especially with the cursed scroll and the vortex on the battlefield already. Happy to just say yeah, sure, was like seems good, go to 5, thanks.
Yeah, the Peace of Mind is good, but with the sulfuric vortex,
That is right.
yeah,
There's more
that's
text on that card, isn't there?
yeah. The problem with Peace of Mind here is the sulfuric vortex is going to prevent the life gain. So Peace of Mind, if you're not familiar with the card, it's white and 1, an enchantment. White, discard a card, you gain 3 life, but the vortex is going to stop the life gain. So not a lot of options here for Connor. So maybe he felt like he had to take that, or maybe didn't realize. I mean, maybe he has a plan for the vortex, but
Yeah, I mean,
we'll see. We'll see what he's got.
I've seen a lot of Vortex in my life, and I clearly forgot that. I was wondering if he maybe just had like a seal or ray like already in hand. He's like, okay, like I just have to kind of like get there. It doesn't look like it. At least no seal. It's just kind of passing.
Yeah, I'm thinking that was just a miss on his part, and it looks like we'll get in for a couple more damage here. He'll go to. Is he going to try and discard for Peace of Mind? Yeah, he's going to try it.
Okay, yeah. So Connor and I in the same boat, forgetting.
Steven quickly points out, like, no. So we figured it out.
Yeah, the card does in fact have text. So very important text in this case.
So it looks like Steven's probably got this one wrapped up here. If you're Connor, what's your plan for game 2?
Well, we've unfortunately learned this lesson pretty hard, which I mean, it does happen. I definitely have done it playing games, or obviously even just talking about it when I don't have the pressure of playing the game. If you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, like you get a little, tunnel vision. Yeah, this one's kind of tricky. I mean, Connor's got a couple of sideboard slots, circle, cop red, a warmth. He's got another e-tutor if he feels, or sorry, 8 e-tutor if he feels that he needs that. Although, um, you know, I that's yeah. I mean, that I'm obviously immediately going to cop red and the warmth. I didn't see a ton else, at least that I recall in his sideboard, that really stood out to me, at least for this matchup. Um, you're not worried about things with like an innocent blood or whatever. He may bring in like a vindicate as just like a catch-all sort of like I need something else to deal with things, depending on what he feels like he can take out. But yeah, so he's probably got some. I feel like he has some options, but if you're uh, the Sligh player, if you're Steven in this case, how are you feeling about his sideboard for this? Because this is, not like your traditional Oath matchup, right? This is, at least from what you've seen, this one feels a little bit, quite a bit different when you see a Rector hit play.
So the Sligh deck has 3 Price of Progress in the sideboard. Those are certainly coming in. Anarchy, to get around things like Warmth or Cop Red, those are certainly coming in. Maybe the Black Vice, but I doubt it. I mean, it's just kind of hard to decide what to take out here. I mean, you could go the route of taking out the 4 Jackal Pups and the 4 Grim Lavamancers, So you're not at a point where you get trapped under the oath, and that's probably the approach I would take a look at and consider. If I'm bringing in 8 cards, I'm looking at the Anarchy, 3 Price of Progress. There's a 1 Sulfuric Vortex in there, and maybe I'll bring in the Black Vices to kind of finish it off. So, very strong sideboard options to just really get in there quickly and kind of sidestep the oath.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You get to not only improve, bring in some things that you feel really good about. Especially, I mean, you're paying attention to Connor's lands. Didn't see a basic. There's not a basic to be found, right? So those Price of Progress are feeling really. They're licking their chops. But yeah, I mean, being able to get in some things that feel like they maybe help a little bit. They keep that game plan going without, feeding into your opponent's plan of oath. Always feels good, right? You're forcing Connor to find alternatives. He's probably not going to have a ton of time to just sit there and hard cast a Rector, or if you're assuming that he's got like Funeral Pyre or something like that, you're forcing him into a lot fewer opportunities here, which always seems good, right? Give your opponent less options.
Right. I think if you're Connor, you have to consider mulliganing aggressively, either into the hand disruption with the 4 duress and the 4 cabal therapy, or a sideboard hate card that's going to be a haymaker like Copret or Warmth. And you could almost bring in the sideboard show and tell that Connor's got. You kind of also put a Form of the Dragon in. Maybe you're one of your options. You get to a point where you're just trying to race, and that becomes more viable, because kind of what we saw there was you sit too long and you're just going to die to the inevitability, either from a cursed scroll or sulfuric vortex. So I don't think Connor can really sit back and afford to pick his spots. I think he just needs to do his thing as fast as possible, or have the sideboard hate.
Yeah, I mean, time is not going to favor him in this matchup, especially when majority of his lands, he has to assume the Price of Progress is going to be on the table. A lot of his lands are potentially doing damage to him between cities, or any of the other pain lands. So he's certainly helping his red opponent get there, which never feels really all that good. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do when you're trying to cast sweet spells and put some sweet enchantments into play. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens here, and hopefully Connor can kind of give us a game 3 here. I'd love to see a good fight, and a little more magic is always good, right?
I mean, these 2 decks are at the top of the heap, so it's certainly possible for Connor to pull off the win. I mean, there seems to be quite a bit of Sligh this go around in the league, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's faced it before and found a way to win.
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard to build, obviously do well in any sort of middle school event, but certainly like bring a deck to a middle school event and be like, oh, okay, I'll just dodge all the Sligh players, right? Like that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, and if there's anything I know about Connor, he's definitely going to have a game plan for pretty well planned out for everything that he's doing. So he's pretty calculated guy. So.
Yeah, so when you're playing middle school, you have a plan for Sligh, just like in Legacy, you have a plan for Delver. Vintage, you have a plan for Dredge. That's just how red deck wins, and Sligh decks are in this format. You have a plan to beat it, or you're just going to get ran over. So, I mean, it looks like he's got some sideboard cards, and we'll kind of see what happens here. Steven starts with the Cursed Scroll and Tormod's Crypt. Okay. So
yeah. We've seen an Enlightened Tutor here. That Tormod's Crypt, for anyone who's maybe less familiar with Academy Rector, it is, it's not a replacement effect. It does have to go to graveyard, and then trigger. So yeah, we're seeing that top red here get tutored for. Not surprising that he'd be going for something to give him a little bit of breathing room potentially. But so yeah, that Tormod's Crypt, as we were talking about before, with taking out some of the creatures to make you less vulnerable to Oath. This gives you a little bit more, safety net perhaps. Now Connor's probably, I imagine, just going to try to slam his top red, try to catch his breath for a turn or two, and then say, "Let's go."
Yeah, we're still at that point where that curse scroll could go all the way, but there's a lot of cards in hand, so I don't think that'll happen. But Connor's mana base is pretty punishing to his life total. So, that cop red probably isn't going to be free. Many times there we go. And we see the price of progress coming. And Steven wisely getting in while Connor's tapped out.
Get in while the getting's good, then seeing the tap lane come into play, and there we go, 3 mana. Curse Scroll's online now, and yes, we still have a couple cards in hand, but I have to imagine that we're going to be able to. What I just briefly saw look like it was maybe 2 card. Oh, we've got a Vortex down, 3 cards in hand. I mean, yeah, we're getting down to Curse Scroll territory very, very quickly here. And that Copperhead's looking like it's got a lot of work cut out for it.
Right. So 3 cards in hand. The Vortex. You probably can't use the Gemstone Mine just because you're going to need the mana. So you're really down to taking 1 damage each turn. So, plus the 2 on top. If you don't do anything, if you have to cast a spell, so it's and Connor here. Okay.
Yeah. At least have that Ray to get the Vortex out of there. So give him, again, he's, as we were saying, he's trying to give himself some breathing room here. And okay, got a 4th land at least. And our Gemstone Mine, obviously, a land with a countdown timer on it, as it were. But let's see what he's got. I mean, I have to imagine he's got something that he's doing here, but he's not slamming anything, which makes me think he's either got decisions or he's just not really excited about anything that's in his hand.
Yeah, if you're Connor, what are you hoping here? What's your plan? It doesn't look like the Oath is going to be a factor. Okay, so we've got the Rector in hand. All right, we're facing down no sack outlets and the Tormod's Crypt on the other end.
Yeah, I mean, the upside is at least he has that Ray in the graveyard, so he can flash that back on the Crypt. Or no, sorry, that's only enchantment, so he does still need something to get rid of the Crypt. Because I don't think we're going to have the luxury of sacking 1 Rector to try to get him to use the Crypt and then set up another Rector turn later. That seems like it might be asking quite a bit there. So
looks like on upkeep here, Steven hit Connor for 2 with the Curse Scroll, and then we'll go to upkeep here. Play Reflecting Pool. Okay. A Seal of Cleansing. There we go. There's the answer for the Curse Scroll.
Yeah, turn that Rector sideways. There we go. What are we here? What are we here
for?
Get
in there. The grandma beats.
Hey, listen, you know what? You got to turn them sideways sometimes. Granny's been around a while. She knows a thing or two.
Okay, so it looks like Connor's, bought him some time, stabilized. He's still got to deal with this Crypt, though. If you're Connor, are you using the seal on the combo stopper or the scroll that's killing you?
Yeah, that's tough. Oh, even if that price of progress reveal didn't hit, it's gonna hit. That feels like big whammies.
So now you're at a point where you can never tap out.
Yeah,
because you're gonna get popped. So just set one of your lands aside somewhere. You've only got 4 left.
yeah. I was gonna say, yeah. Just do the math now. Save yourself the time. Yeah, I mean, this is, yikes. This is tricky. I mean, he needs to kind of somehow be in go mode. I mean, this is one of those times where it's like you wish you had a draw engine, a solitary confinement, loaded up. Um, Lotus Petal. I don't know if that's. I'm very curious what this last card in his hand is because I like with this much mana, even having to keep something up, so you don't die to the pop. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
you
love
kind of
being in this
have
spot
as much
sometimes.
mana to play anything you want. I would think he took out the Necropotence. I'm trying to think if it's something you really want or if it's something just terrible.
I feel like if I'm looking for cuts for those couple things on my sideboard, to me, Necro would be pretty quickly finding its way to the the floor.
All right, so Connor's down to 5. That Curse Scroll's doing work here. I mean, I think we're at a point where, Connor has to fire off that seal.
Yeah, I think
he's either got to force the action on the Tormod's Crypt or take out the Curse Scroll.
Yeah, I mean, if that pop is that price of progress is just lying in wait. That Curse Scroll, like your opponent can just sit here and just say, "Listen, I don't have to do anything else other than tap 4 of my cards, and you're gonna die eventually," right? Like, I'm not trying to let my opponent untap and use that scroll again, honestly, at this point, because then there's just too much. I'm just then going to sit here and throw all my mana at cops the rest of the time, which is not going to save me, right, in the long run.
Right. I mean, maybe you just take out the Cursed Scroll and move to the Mom Beat plan and hardcast Form of the Dragon. If you know.
Hey, more ridiculous things have happened. That Price of Price is like taunting him now. Like, hey, I'm here, still here, remember me?
Yep, there it is. All right, so Steven's got another card here. Looks like he's playing something. Bolt? We found a bolt?
No.
Okay. We found the Black Vice, not doing a whole lot here. But, he did kind of bring those in. It looks like he did kind of cut the creature package like we talked about to get under the oath. So we take a draw.
Grandma's still coming in. I mean, and yeah, here goes that seal. It's about time. But Connor's still, I mean, he knows that he's got to still. You're never excited when your red opponent is sitting there with multiple cards in hand, and you're already at the magical number of 3. That I don't know. I have to imagine you're still assuming your opponent's got a Ball Lightning or 2 in here that could just again, you have to keep throwing mana into that circle of protection, and there's only so much to be. Okay, so Funeral Pyre.
Yeah, so
we're doing here.
So Steve's taking a pretty cautious approach here. It looks like he's really kind of buying his time, trying to pick a spot. He's not being pressured. He's not really in a rush in any way. So
yeah, I mean, it looks like Connor for right now is like, what, dealt with your clock essentially, and I'm just going to stay on the, keep poking you in the face and see if we got a therapy here. Okay. So I feel like you're going to start getting a little interesting here.
Here we go.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, here we go. Let's fire some spells off, friends.
So we're going to get Form of the Dragon, right? Yeah, you just may as well shoot him now. So this makes me think he has more than 1 pop in hand.
Yeah, I mean, you have to assume that Connor's going to be naming it no matter what, because he knows you have at least 1, and obviously kills him. But this play definitely does not make me feel good if I'm Connor. Oh, we're using the city too. Okay.
Okay, so he'll go to 2. We got the other one? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we got the second pop. So it'll force him to lose a mana source on some level here. There we go. And we'll get a look at what these last 2 cards are.
Yeah, let's see what he names. Uh,
Ball Lightning and Vortex. Okay. He must have recently just drew that Vortex. I mean, that seems like a good play.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely that had to have just been drawn, because otherwise, I have to imagine you slam that, so you have it along. I mean, Connor's only got so many answers to your enchantments, so he's letting it. Okay, because he's got the cop red for the ball lightning, assumably. He's still got mana to pump into these, but then he's just eating his mana sources. I mean, even the petals obviously are single use, even more so than his lands.
Yeah, there we go. The jig is up now. He knows you have it. You may as well just take out one of his mana sources. Okay, we'll take out the Gemstone Mine.
Hey, sometimes ball lightning has to be an avalanche riders,
Yeah. More pain landed. We'll get in for 2. Maybe the Beats plan hide behind Cop Red is the best we can hope for here.
I mean, so far it's working. I don't know how many options Connor has for alternative game plans at this point, with that Crypt still on the battlefield. And obviously a very precarious life total with some very painful lands. I mean, at least he's got a reflecting pool to kind of open up his mana a little bit. But I mean, turn a 1/1 into 1/2 sideways enough time. Ooh, oh, we got a Mog. Okay. Although, yeah, not as exciting as it could be, but I mean, heck, you're taking out Connor's game plan right now of turning things sideways with that guy.
You could leave it on the battlefield just to see if maybe you could get an Oath Trigger. Maybe if you can bait Connor into an Oath, or you could shoot the Academy Rector to kind of force the action and use the Tormod's Crypt. There you go. What we got here? The rest, yeah, we're just going to fire. Can we fire this off? Is it a hammer? He's looking like he's about to tap 2.
Yeah, those mountains are hovering. They're getting ready to do something here.
Yeah. Lightning Bolt?
Oh, we're bolting.
Okay, so yeah, there we go. We got the bolt. And we'll lose another mana source. But now we've got that Land of War Waste to at least give one repeatable, to go along with the reflecting pool. So
yeah, that is interesting, because it looks like we bolted that Funeral Pyre token. My assumption is it's getting to that point of a race where Steven's like, I'm not interested in seeing if you can, whittle my single life points down before I do yours, and I'm going to keep forcing you to invest some mana into this, COP. I mean, okay. I mean, this was looking pretty tough, but I mean, it's become very interesting very, very quickly. We're getting down to parity here very, very quickly.
This is what makes middle school and pre-modern and these formats so great, is the mana bases are bad, the creatures are bad, combos are bad. A vast majority of the format is, by today's standards, awful. But they're all awful, which is what really makes it so entertaining and fun to watch, and these games, really fun to play. This was just a great balanced era of Magic where so many different strategies were viable.
100%. I'm right there with you. Right. I mean, back then, for yourself or anyone else who was playing Magic at that time, like your biggest complaint was net deckers. You weren't reading magazines or learning about what the best deck was like a purist at your local game store. You were net decking. We weren't sitting here, crying for OP decks and metas and bans and stuff like that. Life was simple.
It was a good time. We were playing our cards on the pavement. Ultra Pro hadn't hadn't made sleeves yet.
Yeah, I mean, and now, I mean, obviously now we sleeve, double sleeve, triple sleeve our decks. We basically wrap them up in Fort Knox. And back then, when sleeves came out, I mean, there was that period where it was like, how dare you put your cards in sleeves, right? It was like criminal. And now, even when you buy a random like 25-cent card from, for a deck, you're like, well, I got to double sleeve this and put it in my deck. The times have changed.
So Connor might want to watch out here. He's got 4 cards in hand and could kind of forget about that Black Vice. Yeah, so he must be cognizant because he's just firing off a plow here.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time, if I'm Connor, I'm getting nervous and my burn opponent's just sitting there stacking cards in hand, like I've only got so much mana that I can put into this, circle of protection. Oh, and the curse scroll is back.
Yeah, there we go. So we'll just put the trigger. Have we cards in hand? Were we at 2? Oh, Fire Blast, and then we can curse scroll. There we go. Well, that looks like it's going to do it.
Yeah. Connor had to form another Rector, and I think that's a Corrosion Reclamation.
Yeah, I think I wonder how long he had the Rector. I think maybe you lose your Rector to try and force the Tormod's Crypt, and then I guess he didn't have another way to Rector again to do it twice. But yeah, that's tough. That's just a tough. I mean, he was able to stabilize for quite a while, and I think if he had made a decision on the Seal of Cleansing a little sooner about hitting that curse scroll, I mean, he let it go for a few turns longer than he probably needed to. That could have bought him time to. Steven was kind of getting down there, so.
Yeah, I mean, if I would have been very happy in that exchange that turn he cast the duress and he bolted the token. I'm very happy with that. And to your point, yeah, I mean, a couple more turns of him being able to turn creature sideways and not have his life total padded a little more. And yeah, it does look like Steven sideboarded basically exactly kind of what you've been talking about. Take out those Lawmancers, the pups, and hammers, and bring in just kind of the do more cards, right? I don't know if I practically feel like Steven must have messaged you and said, "Here's exactly what I'm going to do. Make sure to tell the stream." I mean, slam dunk there on the sideboard call.
Yeah, I mean that's a tough matchup for Connor between the mana base hurting you and just kind of the way your combo functions. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break here, and our second match will be between Rebels and Elves. So stick around, and we'll be back shortly. Hey
Just like
everyone,
that, we're
welcome
back.
back. Oh, we get a David's got a similar mat to last round. Okay, that's I was like, wait a minute, this looks familiar.
Yeah, when I was looking at their stuff, I was like, "What the heck?" I was like, "How do I keep pulling up the wrong video?" And then I was like, "Wait,
All
no, this
right.
is
It says,
not
okay,
the
players,
same." Yeah,
resolve your
I
mulligans and
was
start
very
playing when you are
confused
ready.
for many minutes, more than I care to admit.
So we've got David on a mono white rebels list, and we've got Mike on the right side with elves, kind of a pre-modern, mainstay in elves. And David's list, kind of the traditional rebels builds you see are either kind of a land destruction green white, kind of that Kai Buddha used back in the day, or a counter rebel shell. But this is more of an aggressive mono white style, kind of using cards like Parallax Wave and Crusade to kind of either take out the opposing creatures or just kind of go bigger. And also using some cool tech in Gaia's Cradles to pay for the rebel costs. So we got an interesting list here. I think this is great. And then on the elf side, you kind of got the standard elf ball you expect, and he's also got 4 Armageddons to go along in the main deck. So some really cool lists here.
Yeah, I was excited about this one because I think, with elves, a lot of times we're immediately jumping to thinking like survival elves. This is that Armageddon style elves deck. I was actually very curious because I believe you've played some rebels in your life, but I think more like the blue white rebels, if I'm not mistaken. I was kind of curious what your thoughts were on this because I would imagine we're talking about a pretty different game here, right? This style of rebels deck versus the more common, like counter rebels. But I would obviously default to you as more the rebels expert here.
Yeah, so usually the rebels style decks I'm playing and that are pretty popular are the counter rebels, and it differs from this build, and where that in the counter rebel shell you're not playing anything on your turn after turn 2 or turn 3, because you're just playing on their turn to kind of leave up the mana. But this shell is more an aggressive slant, and where it differs from kind of the Kai Buddha green white is it doesn't have the port wasteland package, or this is really trying to kind of go through them and kind of play an aggressive game. But it's tough to match elf ball. You're kind of playing into their game plan here. So I think the elves matchup, or the elves player is pretty favored here.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing because we're not talking about either of these decks against some of the other decks more mid range or whatever decks in the format where something like an Armageddon or a Plow Under something like that is basically ending the game in a very different way. These are racing in a very different way. I am curious to see. I did notice that David has a warship in the main deck, and I'm very curious to see if that comes into play because I would love to see just a warship stand that like just land. And I don't believe that we have any way in the main deck, the Elves deck, to deal with that. So that that would be. It may not, it may be kind of wrapped up very quickly if that were to happen. But I would love to see it just for the sake of seeing it, if I'm honest.
Yeah, Mike's main deck doesn't have a way to deal with it. So uh, unless this tribal force mage deals with it, let me look that one up. Okay, this is a morph creature. It probably does not do it. Okay, this is an elf ball morph creature, and when it's turn face up, creatures of chosen type being elves get +2/+2/+2 and trample. So yeah, that worship out there is a pretty big question there, and we'll see if it comes into play here. And oddly enough, usually in the rebels lists, um, you see some number of Wrath of God either in the main deck or sideboard, because you can just kind of let creature decks like this, because usually in the Rebel Shell you're playing a low amount of creatures and you're just kind of relying on the Rebel recruit ability to kind of get you there. So you can kind of play into overextending, letting people overextend in Wrath of God and then just rebuild quicker than them, especially when you're using Gaia's Cradles kind of for the tax. But, I don't see any Wraths in David's main deck or sideboard. Ooh, and we get the brutal plow unders here.
Yeah, that one hurts. I mean, we'll see if we can start to rebuild. But I mean, Elves is, I'm over here wishfully, going on about worship and stuff like that. But meanwhile, our players have been doing some stuff. Elves, not surprisingly, putting a lot of things onto the board, casting plow unders when you're only seeing 2 lands on the battlefield. But yeah, that plow under could prove to be pretty big game. He's normally, I mean, when City gets on the board, and this well being a Rebels player, and it's just like, yep, now I just have my deck available. So not quite the same story here. At least not right now. It seems like we're continuing to go off. We have dice for some floating mana. We're drawing cards with our acolytes here. Yeah, Elves is looking to do its thing right now.
Yeah, it's kind of firing on all cylinders here. And we're really at the point where we're just kind of looking for the payoff spells. Either the Tribal Master or the Elvish Champion is kind of where we're. So we're just going to use the Multani's Acolyte here just to try and increase the draw velocity here and find a way to finish the Rebels player off while they're stumbling under the plow under. I mean, Mike here kind of has all the mana in the world.
Yeah, I believe we have just cast a Morph, which probably to be something relatively interesting and exciting. I doubt it's just going to stay at 2/2 the remainder of the game, but who knows? I've been surprised.
Yeah, we're moving into next turn. Flipped up the Tribal Master kill here. That's kind of the shape we're moving towards.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too great if I'm the Rebels player right now. But especially like you said, without, and granted, yes, we did just get Plow Under cast on us, but especially without one of those kind of come from behind, like a Wrath of God or something like that sitting in our deck.
So we're just drawing cards here. It's the old Luis Scott Vargas vintage plan. You just draw cards, and eventually I'll get around to winning the game. We're doing a count here to see how much mana Priest of Titania generates.
Yeah, I will either just draw and eventually get around to killing you, or you may concede at any point as well. But here's what I'm doing. By the way, you're drawing lands if you forgot. So enjoy.
Yeah, so Mike passes the turn back to David, and he plays that plane. So get in there with the bird. I love it. Send a message.
I was going to say, got to send a message here, right? Like this bird didn't show up just to hang out. It's here to do some work.
Yeah, so it looks like Mike untaps, has at least 17 mana available to him.
He's got a little bit of mana. I do appreciate that we bounced. I mean, use our creatures. I enjoy that we bounced the Acolyte at end of turn, so we wouldn't have to pay the Echo, but also just in case we needed to draw another card. Oh, and another Plow.
Oh. A second Plow Under. Okay, so, and this feels like a desperation play. Like you don't want to make this play, but unfortunately you kind of have to. So kind of what's going on here is we'll activate Lin Civi, shuffle the lands from the first Plow Under So we're not drawing 4 turns of lands, and we'll only draw 2 turns of lands. I guess it would be 3 turns of lands. So we'll go get probably a whip quarter. Okay. So we'll get the whip quarter and the plow under resolve, and we'll have 2 lands. But maybe this whip quarter buys a little time to tap a threat. But I think we're just kind of at the point where we're waiting for the Elvish Lord payoff here.
Yeah, I mean, this doesn't feel good. I mean, either way, like we're still generating a bazillion mana, flipping this assumed force mage. I believe that's the only morph when I checked that was in the deck. We will probably choose elf for the creature type, and then
choose
turn things sideways.
All right, so here we go. Just like you called it. So it looks like we're gonna start bashing in here. And David's just gonna scoop them up. Those plow unders were pretty backbreaking.
Yeah, the first one definitely hurts. The second one is just I need the Simpsons meme.
Stop.
Yeah, okay, so we are definitely, aside from getting plow under twice, we're assuming that when that force mage came up, it didn't name insect. The wirewood symbiote's probably not what we're looking to pump, but yeah, I think David was just like, yeah, we've seen enough here, we're good.
So looking at the sideboard here, if you're David, I think my plan here is just aerial creatures, maybe Glorious Anthem, and bring in the Enlightened Tutor. Your Armageddons are useless. Your Cop or of Silence, you may be unsure as to whether or not they have the survivals in the deck, but that just feels like a losing battle. So I think going in the air and maybe using the Worship as your way to kind of go through it. I mean, David's not without options here. He's got a Masticore, 4 plows, and a Parallax Wave that can really kind of disrupt, some of these mana generating dorks like Priest of Titania, just to kind of buy him some time and to really give him a chance to get in there. I mean, you could tap some of the mana generating dorks with the Whip Quarter on upkeep to kind of prevent some of these things from being played. So, we've got some options if we're David. We're not just dead in the water here.
Yeah, we're not going down without a fight. Certainly not that Defiant Falcon. It was defiant till the end. But yeah, I mean, definitely some options there. From the Elves side, I mean, yeah, I do think that is one benefit. Like, you're assuming your opponent might be survival Elves. You never know. Also, it's not like they necessarily need that in order to do what they just did. But I mean, out of the sideboard, interesting that there's a Reverent Mantra. I think we were talking about this at the start of this round or this match. Sorry, but this is, and aside from the plow under, that probably gave it away a little bit, but it is a green-white Elves build, so there's a Reverent Mantra in the sideboard. So it is a white pitch card to give creatures protection from color of choice, which, I mean, seems good against a assumedly mono-white deck. Maybe bring in swords, just, kind of bop, a Linsivy or something else that you're maybe concerned about. There's some other things in here that I don't think we're maybe as worried about. Color of the Claw, if we're assuming that there's going to be like Wrath of Gods, doesn't feel too bad to me. Just as a hedge, I would be inclined to think that there's, Wrath of God from, my white, mono white opponent. But he also didn't see anything. Like, he's got naturalizes in the board, but I'm not sure if I'm inclined to bring those in without having seen much else from the Rebels deck. And I don't know how well these players are familiar with like the given archetypes. Certainly they probably are more so than I am, but that's probably another one. Do you bring it into hedge against something being there like that worship that we've been talking about? Or do they sit in the sideboard? So
Yeah, I like bringing in at least one. Yeah, even in the dark, just because worship is great in the rebel shell because it's so hard to kill that many creatures, and even if they do manage to do it with some kind of sweeper effect, you can rebuild so quickly. Using the rebels recruit ability. So, I maybe this is my bias. If I'm the elves player, I'm probably going to hedge and assume a worship. But maybe Mike's unaware. We'll see.
yeah, I'm very curious. Yeah, I'm also one of those people that tend to hedge in a lot of my decks and other formats. It'll be like one or two random bounce spells or something like that. I'm like, bring this in just in case there's something scary. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what happens. For the sake of the rebels fighting, the good resistance fight. Hopefully, they see a few less plowhunters this game. I did see a question in chat. I think you actually just responded to. Yes, these games are best of three, and also we are still in just the not like the general round. So these are not open deck lists at this point. Anyone who's caught any of our middle school events in the past, when we get to our top 8 cut, there will be open deck lists. So players are still in the dark as to some of these potentially sweet cards that are hanging out in their opponents' decks.
And so David starts off with the best term one you could ask for the Rebels player, the Ramosan Sergeant. And Mike's, got to find Hornells. Okay, so looking like the last game here.
I was going to say, I feel like we've seen this before, but also probably shouldn't be a surprise that these are going to be pretty common openings for these two decks, especially of these particular types.
Yeah, it would be pretty hard to keep a hand if you're the Rebels player without having either the turn 1 Sergeant or the turn 2 Falcon. And I like this use of the plow here on the Fine Hornells. It's kind of what we talked about while they were sideboarding, just slowing them down to buy you time.
Definitely. And I mean, it always feels good, especially if, your Elves opponent is, probably got a Cradle in hand or something like that. And you're like, well, I kind of just got rid of, 2 mana at once. We are revealing that we have white. We have plains. It's a green-white. So the jig is up, potentially, or maybe they already knew. But similarly, that Cradle came down over on the Rebel side. So now everyone is green-white and very confused as to what's happening on the other side of the board.
Yeah, no play there on the Rebel side. Makes you think they're either holding up something or their hand is filled with expensive cards. Because we're about to see another elf here, and this Cradle and Titania are going to really start to go off here. Okay, maybe we'll get an Acolyte. There's the Acolyte. We'll draw a card. And this is the play you want if you're the Elves player. You just want to play some dorks, draw some cards, and really build up that kind of advantage over time. And this is kind of where it starts to get out of hand for you. There we go. We'll bounce that. Float some more mana, draw some more cards. Oof. And you really taking advantage of David stumbling on that last turn.
Yeah, in a pretty big way. And I mean, especially, like, granted, yes, our quote-unquote shields are down this turn, and that we've used the symbiote, but even being able to have that symbiote for a little bit of, if you do play something a little bit more critical, having that as a little bit of safety net. And a Winter Orb. Obviously, we've got Cradle and Priest, so it's not like if our priest got swords, we'd be suddenly choked on mana or something. But it always feels good to have a little bit of backup. Oh yeah, and we're playing a land straight from the top of the deck here.
Winter Orb is pretty brutal against a Rebels deck. It's no matter what version you're playing, it's just always a mana hungry deck because you're relying on the recruit ability, whether it's kind of an aggro or a destruction or kind of the control counter Rebel shell. I mean, Winter Orb's a backbreaking card no matter what flavor you're playing.
Yeah, our admins in the chat are mentioning, this is not how Rebels drew it up. That you called it perfectly. That little bit of stumble on that second into third turn. Normally, otherwise, that Winter Orb landing, being like, well, Rebels has a Cradle out, that gives them a little bit more flexibility for the recruitability. But we need to, we need to be able to recruit for stuff to begin with, and that Cradle's not doing a ton for us right now. While Elves is still just doing the elf thing, casting creatures, making mana, drawing cards.
An option here is to use the Sergeant, go get the bird, and then for your one untap the Cradle. So that's an option to try and generate some extra mana even while you're kind of trapped under the Winter Orb.
Yeah, I was gonna say I have to assume that like we're just gonna have to go on that plan of like I got to get more mana, more things in play. I also cannot tell what that is that our that elf that just got played.
Is that a Junior Super Series Elvish Champion?
Oh, it very well might be. I was like,
I think it is. Yep, it is the Junior Super Series Elvish Champion. That's nice. Yeah, so we're counting mana for the priest here. I mean, the Plow and the Fine-Horn Elves is pretty good, but following up with a priest is just kind of brutal. I mean, if you take out the priest instead of the Fine-Horn Elves, that kind of really changes. It gives you about an extra turn, kind of from where we were. Then you're relying on the Cradle as opposed to the Titania and kind of the Wirewood on tap. So we're about that time where it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, things are not looking too great. At the same time, I mean, it's hard to fault that plowing that elf. I mean, especially thinking back of like if our opener was a little bit questionable on mana, and we're thinking maybe slowing, like we said, slow elves down a little bit, plow that first turn elf and whatever. Obviously, it didn't end up mattering, but it never feels good to like not kind of bolt the proverbial bird. Just as much as it doesn't feel good to bolt the bird and then your opponent, still does something the next turn anyway. You're like, well, should have saved it. Right.
No, I think it was kind of one of those you zig or you zag, and they kind of got punished. But I don't think it was a bad play, because if you catch the Elves player stumbling, it gives you the time you need to set up. And here we'll go ahead and kind of recruit like we talked about. I assume he'll get either a Whipcord or the Defiant Falcon. And I would assume the Falcon, so we could try and get to a point where Lin Civi could be mana neutral with the Cradle onto the Winter Orb.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
That's the Rebel I never play. I believe this is the 1/2 on the ground. You pay 4. I go grab a Lin Civi.
at the all these.
Okay, Dave was just gonna scoop it up. There's just kind of way too much board advantage and mana denial for him to deal with, and I think Mike was at a point where he had the kill.
Yeah, I mean what we were talking about of like, okay, recruit and then try to get to that point where the cradle's mana neutral, or even actually generating mana would be fine, except there's just already so much pressure. It's not like you're just staring down one or two mana dorks or something like that. Your opponent's assembled an army, they've got a champion out there. It's just not feeling too great. So yeah, I mean, tough games for the Rebels there, but you see a couple plow unders that first game. It's kind of that those were certainly backbreaking, and we saw just a little bit of stumbling there in that second game, and I think it was still well fought though. That first turn play we were talking about definitely always feels like the right thing. Plow that turn one elf, and just didn't happen to work out for him that time. And sometimes that's how Magic goes, right?
Yeah, and this elf shell is so flexible in that you can play a mana denial plan. You can kind of play a toolbox plan with survival. Then you've got the tempo cards you can choose, like Plow Under, and it's a tough shell. I mean, no matter kind of how you slice it and whichever way you want to play.
Yeah, it is tricky. It is a tricky one for sure. So I think our players have finished up. And I believe with that, we are actually almost also finished for the evening. We powered through some matches tonight, which, Robert, I appreciate you joining, giving a little bit more insight here while I was just over here stumbling through cards, trying to identify old promos and stuff like that. But we saw some sweet Magic played, some tricky spots for our players as well. So, everyone that tuned in, as always, we really appreciate it. We are here Thursdays. We're getting towards the last couple weeks of just the play-in rounds before we make our cut to the top 8. And definitely, if you have not, you should see them at the bottom of the screen. All of the social links, Twitter, and Discord definitely is where you're going to see the most activity. You can join us, find out about future leagues and other events we have going on here in Austin. I'm making sure to represent, the Stones tonight by way of T-shirt. But appreciate y'all joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next week for some more Magic, and in a future league to join us and play.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for hanging out, and for everyone in the chat. Appreciate you stopping by, and tune in next week for top 8 win-ins.
Yeah, have a good night, everyone. Thanks, and enjoy the weekend. We'll see you next time.